So the topic of discussion in tonight's healing room is the subconscious mind. And for me, this topic is of utmost importance because in my field of holistic healing, the subconscious mind, I've come to find, is essentially running the whole show. It's where so much of our work resides in this lifetime. As souls in human form, our contracts and our job is essentially in the subconscious mind. And, to get a clear understanding of what the subconscious mind is, we have the awareness of what's happening in the world consciously. And that can be looked at as if we describe the consciousness and the subconscious as we connect it to the, what is that in the ocean? An iceberg floating in the ocean. The conscious part of us is that little section that's above the water. And then you have this huge part that's underneath the water. That's the subconscious mind. That part under the water is driving that small part above. So here we are in our lives thinking, I'm running the show. I'm consciously aware of what I'm doing each day and the decisions that I'm making. But the reality is, this huge part below is the motor behind our consciousness. That we are living these lives and making the decisions we're making from this place, with this warehouse of unconscious content. A warehouse could be from our past, from our childhood, could be lineage stuff, could be samskaras, which are impressions from past lives. Many, many things are in this subconscious mind, and each day it's informing our lives. It is driving our lives, not us, not the conscious part of us. We're just following the directives of the subconscious mind. And so it behooves us to excavate, to begin to understand what is in my subconscious. What are these programs, patterns, and beliefs that I'm running, or that's running me, that I'm not even aware of? So the subconscious operates through patterns. It's vibrational, rhythm, rhyme. And so when you notice patterns in your life that you don't like, it's being governed by the subconscious. And so what you can do when you discover a pattern that you want to change is you have to name the pattern and then reprogram it. That's essentially what we're doing. We are excavating the subconscious of its content, limiting thoughts, beliefs, patterns, ideologies. And then once we find it, we transform it. That's why I call the subconscious the cauldron of transformation, because that's where most of our healing work is going to happen. A lot of our physical ailments are also coming from the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. So the body, to me, is the result of the subconscious patterns. And that's why I focus mostly on the mind when I'm working with clients with physical illness. Because if I can change the mindset, the subconscious mindset, then the body will follow suit. Just like in the meditation, where the aura is nourishing the physical body, in the same way, the subconscious is informing us of the health or lack of health or dis-ease of the body. And so we do the inner work to understand these patterns. And the way you can realize a pattern is through reactivity in life. Whenever we react to the external world, that's the subconscious content coming to the surface. That's an opportunity to grab the information, take a hold of it, and start to clear it out. So the external world, that small part of the iceberg, is the external world. And so we're engaging with the external world at that superficial level. We think we are living in a world, but the external world is actually generated by us, by each one of us. That's why each one of us is having a very different experience in the same exact world. We're all having very unique experiences because the subconscious content is directing the external world, and the external world is reflecting back to us, our subconscious content. So whenever we become reactive, it informs us something is up in the subconscious. Let me sit down, take a look at it. If you don't have the awareness of the subconscious content, then you will react, you may blame, you may project, which is actually going to reinforce the pattern. It's going to grow roots in the subconscious mind. And most people just do that. They react to the external world, thinking the external world is cause. The external world is not the cause of our reactions. The external world is a catalyst of that which is already inside of us. I'll say it again. The external world is not cause of our internal experience. The external world is simply a catalyst that triggers us to become aware of these patterns, programs, and beliefs. Because every time we react, we're losing energy. We're losing our vital force. And so it really behooves us to sit back as soon as we start reacting and to do the inner work. What just came up? What am I feeling? What is my belief about this? So journaling is a very important part of the process to purge the subconscious mind of its limiting content. So I call that exercise the subconscious purge. So if I have a reaction to someone in the outside world, say someone says something to me and I take it personally, and I feel like a victim, then I'll have to sit back. I have two choices. I can either react to that person, make them the cause, blame them for how I'm feeling, or I sit back and I do the inner work to say, why is it I'm feeling like a victim right now? Well, they just said X, Y, and Z, and I feel victimized. Okay, so would anyone else, if they heard those same words, feel victimized? Actually, probably not. Okay, great. So that's inside of me. So what actually am I feeling? And then you start to excavate and allow the content to come to the fore. That's why it's good to wait 24 hours before responding to people whenever you have a strong reaction, like anger, for example. Take the time to unpack what the reaction, where the reaction is coming from, and then do the reprogramming of it. Because again, the subconscious mind operates from rhyme, rhythm, and repetition, patterns. That's why they spend so much money on marketing, because they know that they can access your subconscious mind. Through a jingle, for example, right? You deserve a break today at McDonald's. And you start to sing this jingle. And then that jingle becomes part of your subconscious. Then you're driving around in the street, and you're like, oh, I'm hungry. And immediately you're triggered to go to McDonald's. So the subconscious mind is easily manipulated. Any content can be put in there, but you want the content that you want in there. You don't want their content in there. My first degree is in marketing and business. So I learned all about this early on, and I opted not to go into marketing because of it. And when I would ask my teachers, I'm like, this sounds a lot like manipulation. And they'd say, no, we're just supporting people in their choices. Sounds like manipulation to me. Supporting people in the specific choices that they're making. So this is happening all the time, every day. All this marketing content going into the subconscious mind and programming us. And it also is happening in the news with propaganda. And they do it, it's done with fear, to instill fear in people, because you can control people who are afraid. But if you do the inner work of integrating the shadows in the subconscious, then you are not easily manipulated, because you begin to see through the illusion of the world. You begin to see through all the marketing techniques and the tactics and the propaganda. And you remain neutral about it, because the witness is simply watching. And so I remain neutral in the midst of all that's transpiring in the world. No reactivity. Neutrality is where we want to be, because there's no loss of energy in neutrality. So we do our inner work with the subconscious mind by noticing all of the patterns that are there and realizing that I'm not any of these patterns. I'm none of these things that are there. And this is why activating the witness is so important in this process, because the witness is the bridge between the subconscious and the conscious mind. The witness is watching on all levels. So it's kind of like that horizon line between that small part of the iceberg that's in the world and the subconscious part that's below the world. So that witness is a very important character in our show and in our performance of life on Earth. And so we activate that witness each day. This is why we meditate, like in the beginning of this healing room. We sit back, we close our eyes, and we take notice: the breath, the mind, the body. How's everything going? How's everything feeling? You come back to the self every day, because the external world is all about taking you out of yourself, distracting you from doing the internal work, right? Always something to do in the external world. But when you close your eyes and you activate the witness, then all of a sudden you start to see a different reality. You start to see the truth below the surface, below the superficial reality that is going on outside of us. And when we do this inner work, all of a sudden we begin to see that the outside world changes, because we're changing. When we no longer react, we no longer attract those experiences to us to support their reaction. When we no longer react, we no longer attract to us the subconscious content. It's dissolving, because we're just watching it. Oh, I noticed today I'm less reactive. It's losing power. The pattern is losing power. So say I find a pattern of poverty consciousness in my subconscious mind, which I had in the past. I would notice, like, wow, I only make enough money to kind of pay all my bills every month. It never was important to me. But one day I decided I'd like to change that. So I did a subconscious purging of what money is. You know, money is a burden. Money is hard to come by. Money is only for wealthy people. Like all this content, I just let it purge out of my subconscious, right? Because the conscious mind is like, no, I want money. But the purge is allowing the subconscious to let all of its limiting beliefs that we're not conscious of come to the surface and out. That's why we write this stuff out. And so I do the subconscious purge around money or survival consciousness or poverty consciousness, which is an archetype. I do the inner work, release all of this content, and then I replace it with a new rhythm, a new pattern. I receive the abundance I am. I receive the abundance I am. And then I keep repeating that daily. And the subconscious doesn't know anything beyond patterns. So it's like, oh, I receive the abundance I am. And now it's running a new program. And then after that, my life changed. And I received an inheritance within a month. So I shifted. First, I became aware. What's the belief? What's the limiting belief? What's the limiting program? Then I find it. Oh, poverty consciousness. Money is not important. I don't care about money. I don't even want money. Interesting, curious. And then I reprogram. I receive the abundance I am. I am worthy of abundance. And then the external world begins to reflect that shift in consciousness. That's why Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. I need to become the change that I want to see in the world. So if I'm not making enough money in the world, then I've got to change internally so that the world reflects back to me abundance. Because the world is simply a reflector of our inner state of consciousness. That's all it is. It's my projection, conscious or unconscious, of my beliefs about fill in the blank. There's another point. Oh, yeah. One way to really facilitate the cleansing of the subconscious mind and the samskaras from past lives is mantras. So we've all heard of affirmations, right? Like, I receive the abundance I am. Louise Hayes, she did a whole thing of this in the 80s, beginning in the 80s, of looking in the mirror and saying how beautiful I am, and just really supporting us in realizing how important our words are and our thoughts are. So affirmations are very, very useful. This, though, mantras, though, are vibrational words. Sanskrit is a vibrational language. And the seers, the rishis, and the Himalayas, who were sitting there meditating, would receive mantras to support humanity and healing. And so when I went to India about almost 25 years ago, maybe it was 22 years ago, I was walking around the compound and I heard someone say, we're going to teach these two mantras, by the big oak tree. And my inner voice said, you go, these are important for you. And I said, fine, okay. So I went to this oak tree and they downloaded these two mantras. And one of them I really kept close. And it's called the Gayatri mantra. And so these mantras, when we repeat these words over and over again, they essentially are absorbing, purifying the content in the subconscious mind. It is so much more efficient than trying to excavate it all by ourselves. So the Gayatri mantra, I've been doing it now for 20 plus years, and it's changed my life. Whenever I'm stressed out, I just start doing the mantra. I sit down, I do the mantra, and it just clears things out. Whatever's the muck on the surface of my subconscious mind, it just clears it up, and I'm back to neutral within 5-10 minutes. So that's another example of how you replace the subconscious mind with a different content. And in this case, that different content is a mantra. Other times, we're looking for entities who are hanging out in the subconscious. And these entities I call archetypes. Archetypes are patterns, programs. And the archetypes exist in the collective unconscious. So we have our personal unconscious, which is the subconscious mind, and then there's the collective unconscious, where there's a tremendous more amount of content. And there we have the archetypes. And I believe it's infinite how many archetypes exist, because they exist every time we humans create them. So it's kind of like a machine. So like all the disease names have become a program, like cancer or AIDS or diabetes. Every time a doctor gives you a diagnosis, you're being cast a spell, right? You're being given an entity, cancer, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever it is. Not only do you have these symptoms, you now have this program. And so I don't recommend taking on any programs from any doctors. Just observe what they say and then do the homework you have to do to see how you can heal yourself. But there are various other archetypes like the victim or the prostitute or the mother. It goes on and on and on. And so we want to become aware of these archetypes in our subconscious because we place them there. Archetypes are teachers. And so our goal is to find the deficient aspect of the archetype, like the wounded child or the victim. A lot of us have the victim archetype, and then integrate that archetype by communing with it, asking it, why did I call you into my life? How are you serving me? Because they serve us. We're not victims of the archetype. They serve us. And then once you find an archetype, you say, I see you, which means I have the power now because I'm seeing the pattern that I am feeling like a victim in this world. Once you see a pattern, you have the power. It doesn't have you. This is important in so many ways and so many levels. One day, perhaps, I'll be able to explain it better. But if you see something with your awareness, you have all the power. Just remember that. And put a little note with it in your consciousness, like a bookmark. And so I confront the archetype and I say, why would I have called you into my life? And it may say, because if you're a victim, then you don't have to take any responsibility for the mess that your life is. You can just blame your family lineage, your childhood, whatever you want. So the victim has a reason for being a victim. And so you say, okay, I choose to take responsibility for my life now. I'd like to integrate you into my heart. What is the gift you can give me? What is the lesson learned? And it will say, or may say, the lesson is I am 100% responsible for being the creator of my life. So the gift is cause. And you say, thank you for the gift of cause. And the archetype integrates into your heart. You just absorbed a shadow from the subconscious. And that victim takes a lot of energy from your vital force. Each archetype requires a certain amount of your vital force. Each pattern, each program requires a certain amount of your vital force. So we want to always replace the deficient patterns with exalted patterns. Fear goes to courage. Judgment goes to acceptance. Anger goes to love, compassion, and on it goes. So the goal is to constantly transform the lower aspects of our personality into higher aspects of our soul, the lower aspects of our emotions to the higher aspects of our emotions. And after one integrates the archetype of a victim, then one calls in the higher octave of the victim to come in and take its place. What's the higher octave of the victim? It could be different for each one of us. For me, it was the spiritual warrior. I'm not a victim, I am the warrior. And so we can do this with many, many archetypes. When I first was taught about this exercise, I sat down, my inner voice guided me through it. It was 15 archetypes that I integrated in that evening. And I had no idea all these entities were operating in the background, siphoning my life force energy. And so as we incorporate our subconscious content, as we are cause for our life 100% and no longer projecting blame into the external world, which then brings it back to us, as all of our self becomes rooted in this present moment, then we become this cauldron of transformation, constantly transforming all the content in the subconscious mind until there is nothing left. Mission accomplished. Then we become transformers in the world. We become the change the world is looking for. So not only have we become the change I want to see in the world, we become change agents in the world because the world is subconscious content. The world is filled with the subconscious content. So if we've done the inner healing work, we then radiate a transmission that heals the world. That is the gift that we give back to the world through our own inner healing, through our own return to wholeness.